Yo, what up guys, Izzy here, back with another video, and today we're actually going to be ranking all the restricted legendary Pokemon from Series 11. Now, if you guys aren't aware, Series 11 has started. It is essentially the same as Series 10, but with Dynamax Pokemon included. So, now that Dynamax is a factor in the format, then a lot of Pokemon do lose out on their viability. And yeah, we're just going to be kind of talking about them. I did organize these Pokemon from Generation 1 to Generation 8, so that's kind of what we are doing now. But let's go ahead and just get started with the first Pokemon, which is Mewtwo. Now, Mewtwo isn't a Pokemon that is very good in restricted formats. However, it's not absolutely terrible. There are definitely worse options out there, and I don't think it deserves a D ranking. I believe it does deserve, however, a C ranking. So we're just going to go ahead and put them in C. Now, Lugia is another Pokemon that is not absolutely garbage, but it's not great. It's good that it did gain the Dynamax factor though. Weakness policy is a very good item on it, and it is definitely very bulky. I would say that it's also in the same tier as Mewtwo because these two Pokemon definitely need a lot of work in order to make them good, but it's definitely possible, and they're not completely hopeless, so I'll put them in the C tier. D tier is for Pokemon that are absolutely lost, like they cannot be redeemed at all. But anyways, for the next Pokemon, we actually have Ho-Oh. Now, I wouldn't say Ho-Oh is an A tier threat. I would definitely say it's a B tier. It's a Pokemon that, with some effort in team building, it could definitely do a lot of work against a lot of the Pokemon that are in here, especially because of the typing. There isn't any restricted Pokemon with this same typing, and the fact that it's able to face off against Zacians and other Pokemon like Zamazenta, or even the likes of Necros Matasme and the Solgaleo itself, and just several other options. It can definitely tank hits and can ditch out a good chunk, especially because it has some really good moves like Sacred Fire. It has a great ability into Regenerator, so if you need to switch it out, get some HP back, then get it back out in the field, it's definitely a possibility. So it's a good Pokemon, definitely. Now, for the next Pokemon, it's Kyogre. And baby, we already know Kyogre is an S tier threat. That thing is so easy to use. And it's not only just really easy to use, it's also very strong, and it has so many options for team building. Like, you can use this thing with several Pokemon. Now, Serena might not be so viable, or too viable rather, in this format, because Dynamax is a factor, so usually there's less fake out users than in Series 10. In Series 10 we had a bunch of users for that, but it's still a really good option. You have Tornadus, you have Raichu, you have Eliki, you have Lungus. There's so many options for Kyogre. It's crazy, and that's why we're putting it in the S tier, because it's definitely an S tier threat. Now, Groudon is another Pokemon that is very close to being S tier. I believe that Groudon is just a bit, like, it's just missing just a little bit to be in the same ranking as Kyogre. Especially because it usually isn't the main damage dealer. It's usually like supporting some of its damage dealers. It's usually not the Pokemon that wants to Dynamax, is what I'm saying. It does open the way for other Pokemon like Venusaur and Charizard, so it's definitely a really good option. I wouldn't say it's bad. It's not. It's definitely an A tier threat. I might change my mind later on, but I don't think I will. But anyways, then we have Rayquaza. Now Rayquaza kind of falls in the same factor as Mewtwo and Lugia. It's definitely a C tier Pokemon. Like, it's not really that great, but it can definitely work in some instances. The issue with Rayquaza is the fact that, well, its ability really isn't doing anything if there's not a Kyogre or a Groudon facing them, or any weather setter, really. And aside from Kyogre and Groudon and maybe Torkoal, the common weather user would be like a little Ninetales, and, well, Rayquaza really doesn't want to face off against that at all. So it's not bad, though. It could definitely work with some team building, but it's not going to ever be the star of the show. The stats are not the best as you can get, so I wouldn't say it's anywhere near a B tier threat. So yeah, it's definitely C tier. Then we have Palkia. Now, Palkia is one of those Pokemons that actually gain a little bit more viability because of the Dynamax factor, because no longer do you have to hope that you hit your Hydro Pump. You can now actually just Dynamax and straight up set up the rain. You can lower your opponent's attacks with the max Whirlwind. So it's definitely a Pokemon that does gain some viability. I wouldn't say it's too much. I would say more so around like the same tier as Ho-Oh. Now, Dialga to me is a much better option because of the typing. Now, the Steel typing does provide you with a lot more resistances. I think Dialga has much more options than Dialga, or yeah, exactly, than Palkia has. So I would say that Dialga could definitely be an A tier threat for sure. It's not a hard Pokemon to use at all. It's very efficient. It takes a lot of hits, and it could definitely work, especially with a weakness policy set, or even an assault vest set. It could work absolutely wonders, and it can face off against some of the bigger threats like Kyogre and potentially Zacian, or even, you know, Calyrex. So it's definitely a really good pick. Then we have Giratina. Now, Giratina is not a really good Pokemon for Dynamax formats. Like, the biggest issue is, you know, it's weak to like the majority of the Pokemon that are already in here. It can't outspeed any of them, and while it is very bulky in Dynamax, it is very bulky. You want to get the best out of your Dynamax turns. You don't just want to like waste it on a Pokemon that can live those 3 turns very easily. You want to actually deal a lot of damage. So for Giratina, even though I feel that it could somewhat work in some instances, I don't think it's really that great, and I would say that it would need a lot of work to actually, you know, make it so that it's actually good at tier. Now, as for Zekrom, Zekrom is a really good Pokemon, actually. It's not terrible. I would say it's a B tier. Yeah, I would say it's a B tier Pokemon threat. I would say that Reshiram might be just a bit better, because it does have a couple of options over the Zekrom. It offers super effective hits against things like Zacian, which are a huge threat, and it could pretty much take the hits from Zacian pretty easily, whereas the Zekrom couldn't. So I'll say it's a this one's a little bit of a toughie, but yeah, I would say it's a no. Actually, you know what? They're kind of in the same level. So yeah, we're gonna go ahead and just place them in the B tier, both of them. Now, as for not Zekrom. As for Kyurem is actually bad. Kyurem really doesn't offer anything really good here. Its stats are kind of mediocre compared to like a majority of the Pokemon here, and even though it is somewhat bulky, it's an Ice type that really doesn't have enough bulk to actually, you know, justify using it at all. And the offensive power that it has is, you know, overshadowed by a majority of the Pokemon that are in here. So I would definitely say no, Kyurem, you're not going anywhere. So unfortunately, Kyurem stays in the D tier, you know, wherever to be placed there. Now for Kyurem Black and Kyurem White. Now I'm gonna tier these two in the same C tier because the thing is about these two Pokemon is that they're great. They're not terrible at all. They're like really good, but they suffer somewhat of the same issue that Kyurem does. The only difference is that they have a bit more coverage because of the fusion, and they have better stats. But in terms of usage, it's nowhere compared to the Pokemon that are above it, since they have a lot more support or better supportive options than the Kyurem, and they get much more out of those supportive options than the other Pokemon. So I wouldn't say they're in the same tier as Kyurem, but they're not miles away from, you know, being that great. So yeah, unfortunately, Kyurem, you're gonna have to stay down there. I'm sorry. But let's go ahead and rank the next one, which would be Xerneas. Now, surprisingly enough, as much of a threat that Xerneas was in Series 10, it's not that big of a threat in this series, because of Dynamax. Now, there's so many Pokemon that can just Dynamax and take the hit from the Xerneas and actually deal damage back to them. Say, for example, Dialga is a very good example of a Pokemon that can definitely take it on. Other Pokemon such as Solgaleo, the Crossmouth Duskmane, they can definitely take it on very easily without, you know, without dying from any one hit after a Geomancy, because another issue with Xerneas is the fact that, well, it does need to take a turn without Dynamax in order to actually set up. So if you do happen to Geomancy and the other Pokemon does Dynamax, you're already down pretty much one Pokemon, or are about to be down one Pokemon. So I would say that Xerneas, from being an S tier threat, has gone down significantly to a B tier threat, because it's no longer as much of a threat. And even in Series 8, it was barely ever used at all because of the same issue. As you guys, if you guys don't know, that the rules in Series 11 are the same rules from Series 8. So we already kind of know that Xerneas wasn't that great in that series, because it just wasn't used as much as the other Pokemon. So yeah. Now, for Yveltal, I would say that Yveltal is a very good Pokemon. I would say it's A tier, not S tier. It does the thing about Yveltal, why it's, you know, above Xerneas in this scenario, is because of the fact that, I mean, it doesn't really need to set up to be good. It's already good from the get-go, and it's already a really good offensive Pokemon, and it's very bulky as well. It can take on a lot of the Pokemon that are in this tier list, and not only hit for super effective damage, but it can just lift hits very easily and ditch out a good chunk of damage. And yeah, that's my reasoning for it. Now, another good Pokemon is Zygarde. Now, you might see that I've included every Pokemon with their formies, and I didn't include, I believe it's 10% Zygarde. The reason I didn't include it is because I really thought that it wouldn't be worth mentioning, because it never gets used at all. Like, it really never gets used at all. So I figured, you know what, people are not gonna use it over this. Now, the reason why Zygarde is so good is because of its ability. I believe it's Construct, and once you do gain that form, it is incredibly hard to take it down if you don't have like a very solid Dragon type or a very good Ice type move or type. So it's a really good Pokemon, and back in Series 8, it was very hard to take down. After it got its Formy and it was able to Dynamax, it is just ditching damage left and right and barely taking any damage in itself. So yeah, definitely a a huge threat. So I'm definitely putting it in the A tier, not in the S tier, because it's not one of the easier Pokemon to use, and it's a little bit it has some poor matchups, but it's definitely a very, very good Pokemon and a very huge threat. So I do believe it does deserve to be at least an A tier threat. Now, next up is the Solgaleo and Lunala. Now, I think that both Solgaleo and Lunala kind of deserve to be in the same tier. I think that both of them, well, not really. Solgaleo is a little bit easier to use than the Lunala because of the fact that this Pokemon, after getting its weakness policy, has Dynamax is a very, very huge threat. And it doesn't have a quadruple damage. It's not A, sorry. It's not A. It's definitely a B tier threat, and I think that you can definitely make Lunala work, but it would kind of take the same amount of work that maybe a Mewtwo or Lugia team kind of need. So I would say Lunala is a C tier, but Solgaleo is definitely B. It's very good. It's very offensive once it gets set up, and I just think it's a really good Pokemon. I remember struggling just a little bit against it at some points in Series 8, and it was just really, really good. Now, we have the Necrozma. Now, Necrozma is definitely a D tier. It's useless. It's not a great Pokemon at all in a restricted format. Not but by itself, at least. By itself, without the fusion, it's just really not that great of a Pokemon. However, the formies on their own are very, very good. I would say that it's kind of the same thing, but I would say that both of them are kind of B tier with Solgaleo, because the Lunala gains that big advantage with the stat boosts, and I believe it's just a bit bulkier than the regular Lunala. So I would definitely say, you know, this is definitely a little bit better. It does also gain some coverage options addition to what Lunala already has. So yeah. Now we go into the Zacian and Zamazenta. Now we already know that Zacian is an S tier threat. It's an absolute fucking beast. It is very, very strong, and it's just able to dish out so much damage to Dynamax Pokemon because of Behemoth Blade's ability, or effect, I guess you could say. There's not much to say about Zacian. I mean, we've already seen it in Series 10. It didn't Dynamax then, it won't Dynamax now, and it's still as much of a threat as it was previously. You know, the difference now is that you have a huge threat plus an additional Dynamax slot for you to use on whatever Pokemon. And you know what? That kind of makes me think, you know what? Groudon is a very, very good Pokemon because of that same reason. So Groudon definitely kind of deserves to just be in the S tier, honestly. It kind of serves the same purpose as Zacian, as being a huge threat and giving its other Pokemon that it's supporting or has in the back the option to Dynamax to offer much more offensive pressure. So I would say, yeah, definitely Groudon should be in S tier. Now let's go ahead and rank Zamazenta. Now Zamazenta, the biggest issue with Zamazenta is the fact that I'm taking a look at the stats on Zamazenta right now, because honestly Zamazenta's not a bad Pokemon at all. It's just that in comparison to Zacian, the typing is not that great on it, and the stats aren't nearly as great either. I'm taking a look at the stats right now. Yeah, here it is. So yeah, I mean, like, it is very, very speedy and it's very, very bulky, but it just lacks some of that. Like, if this Pokemon had body press, I would think that this Pokemon would be much better, because then setting up the iron defenses would actually mean something, you know. I wouldn't say that this is a huge threat. I would actually go as far as to saying that seeing a Zamazenta on the opposing team is kind of a relief. It could definitely work. I wouldn't say it's not gonna work, but the typing is just not that great for this format. There's so many Pokemon here that could actually take it on without any issue. And there's not much it actually does against the rest of the Pokemon, honestly, I think. So, Zamazenta, you're kind of a hard one to rank here. Because, I mean, you're not terrible enough to be in the C tier, but I feel like you're not that great to be in the B tier. I guess you're good enough to be in the B tier. I'll give you some, I'll cut you some slack. I'll cut you some slack, and I'll put you in the B tier. And, okay, so for the rest of the Pokemon, I think that Eternatus, even though it follows kind of the same premise as Zacian, doesn't offer as much offensive pressure as most of the Pokemon here. It's very strong, don't get me wrong, like the stats are super good, but usually people use it as a bulky stall tactic, and that in it of itself is not a great thing. I would say that, let's see, I would say that Eternatus, you are definitely B tier Pokemon. Yeah, you're B tier. You're all right there. Calyrex by itself is a terrible Pokemon, so it's definitely a T tier. It's useless. Absolutely dog shit. I'm sorry. Like, Calyrex on its own is just a terrible Pokemon to use. Like, its stats are so bad. Calyrex. Yeah, look at, like, those stats, base 80 on most of them, that's a red flag. That's a red flag. You should not date this Pokemon. You do not take this Pokemon anywhere. But, as for its formies, though, now the formies, we already know Calyrex is an absolute unit. It's definitely an S tier threat. Dynamax and non-Dynamax, this thing is consistently being a huge fucking presence in the format, so definitely deserves to be in the S tier. I think that following up with it, A tier for the Calyrex Ice Rider is definitely a good option for it. The reason being is the Cali in and of itself is really good. Like, the stats, super bulky, super offensive, and being able to have Trick Room of its own is great. The fact that it gains a little bit of speed when it does go with Calyrex, you know, the Glastrier is much slower than Calyrex Ice Rider, is a little bit of a hindrance, but not enough to say that it's gonna go lower. This Pokemon on Trick Room is an absolute unit, and it also utilizes weakness policy very well, because, I mean, Dynamax, this thing is very hard to kill. Very hard. You have to have a Pokemon that's already set up, or a Zacian on your team, to actually have a chance to, I believe, one-shot it with Behemoth Blade. But yeah, well, that's actually all the Pokemon that we had for today, actually. So this is the tier list. Fairly simple. I tried to make this a little bit shorter than it is right now, but I kind of failed on that. But anyways, yep, this is of course based on my opinion, based on my experience, based on what I've been able to see throughout, you know, Series 8, and what I am predicting to kind of happen for Series 11. So you guys let me know if you disagree with this list. If you do, then what would you tier these Pokemon in, or which selection specifically did you disagree with me on? But anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this little video. Hopefully this helps you out with selecting the legendary Pokemon that you're going to be using. If anything, of course, if you need any assistance, any help with any Pokemon that you're trying to build around, you could always leave a comment in the comment section below. I could kind of try and help you out with any team building tips that I might be able to give you. I'm not the best team builder, but yeah. Anyways, hope you guys enjoyed. Have yourself a fantastic rest of your day. Stay safe, wear a mask, wash your hands, and yeah, I'll see you guys later. Goodbye.